Why does Etsy have so many listings up that they shouldn't, that are banned from being sold on Etsy? Is it just because Etsy's greedy? Let me talk about this. Okay, so I see quite often people are asking why. Why is it that if I can't sell Disney on Etsy, there are so many listings? And so many people reply, it's just because Etsy are greedy. So I want to talk about that. Maybe even come to Etsy's defense. I know, shock horror, but I just want to explain why it's a thing and why we should kind of be happy that it's a thing. So, off the top of my head, there are a couple of types of listings that people see that shouldn't be being sold on Etsy. The first are those copyright, those IP infringing listings, like Disney characters. And the second are types of listings that are prohibited by Etsy, like weapons or drugs or all sorts of things. So first of all, let's start with the Disney type ones. Why doesn't Etsy take these listings down? Now, although we would all like to think it's because Etsy's greedy, and I am sure they make a metric ton of money, I have had people tell me how much they made in their shop when they were selling the infringing items compared to when they've gone legit now. Customers like these kind of things. The baby, is he still there? Baby Yoda somewhere on my shelf, somewhere there, something like that. When Baby Yoda was first came out, everybody wanted to buy a Baby Yoda thing. You couldn't buy them officially, but even so, people just wanted to buy them wherever they could get them. And Etsy and everywhere else that was selling them illegally blew up, making lots of sales. So I totally get the temptation. You could open a shop, sell loads of things, and cash in, ka-ching. It's easy money because there's lots and lots and lots and lots of customers for these things. So I get it. And you look and you see how many shops there are, and they're making money, and it seems like they're there forever. The the problem with this is Etsy can't police this. At the minute in time, the law, especially in America, but most of the world, the law is simply that Etsy's not responsible for this. The IP owner, the copyright holder, has to issue a takedown notice, has to contact Etsy and say, "This is my item, please get it removed." So it's not Etsy's job to police this. This is the same on any site. It's not eBay's job. It's not anybody's job to police it. So they have to wait until the copyright holder contacts them and says, "Get this taken down." And then Etsy doesn't have to decide if they're right or not. That is also not Etsy's job. So you might have been hit by a claim that you thought was fake. You thought your listing was okay, but someone complained to someone who was the copyright holder. Can't just be anyone. You can't just try and take down your competitor's shop because you're a bit angry. But the copyright holder complained to Etsy, and Etsy just took the listing down. That is their job. They don't have to decide who's right and who's wrong here. They just go, right, you've submitted the right paperwork, I take it down. And in that paperwork, in the message that you'll get, it says you have a certain amount of time. You can appeal by basically just saying, no, that's a load of rubbish, put my listing back up again. And the next steps are, when you've done that, then the copyright holder can decide if they want to take you to court, basically, because the only people who can actually decide if you're breaking copyright law, IP, intellectual property law, is a court of law. This is a legal issue. So that's why Etsy can't decide if it's right or not. Added to that, they can't even flag the things up because there are certain instances that it is absolutely okay to sell these kind of things. You could have got a license or permission from the company to use their copyrighted type things. You could be selling an old vintage clock that you had, just so long as you're selling it on without having, you know, made Bambi a zombie, and then be disparaging the good name of Etsy with your scary zombie Bambi clock, which I'm totally going to search for. But just so long as you're just selling something vintage, just like eBay, you're passing on something that you've no longer got use for, then you're okay to sell it. So Etsy can't really decide on this. And that the other quite simple thing that works in both cases, if Etsy did set up a system to do this, and somebody slipped through the gap, if they had a kind of flagging up thing saying that Disney items would be not allowed, if as soon as you tried to publish it, Etsy system would go, no, fail. If something slipped through the net, then people could sue Etsy for not catching them. So Etsy can't really do it. Now, the law might change in future. I've certainly seen on places like YouTube things with music copyright violations and things. That's been changing and being flexible all the time. So things might change. But as it stands, that copyright infringing items are up because they haven't been caught yet by the copyright holder. And I will say, it might seem like some things are up there for a really long time. Some companies just don't have the manpower to hunt things down, but it still doesn't mean that you should be doing it. But other companies can be sitting back and watching. They're a little fed up, and it looks like this is a big enough shop, and they want to send a message. So they might be sitting and watching and seeing how long your listings are up for, how much kind of sales you're making. So when they come for you to get their money back. They're coming to sue you. They're coming to, yeah, don't want to do that. So yeah, just because lots of other people are doing it, please don't. The saying in the industry is don't mess with the mouse. Definitely Disney, but anyone else, if somebody else created it, don't try and sell it. So the second thing we have is those kind of things that are prohibited by Etsy. Now this is a little more of a grey area. We do know that some things have been taken down. We have heard of these things, and yeah, well, Etsy can't police everything. Let's first of all be absolutely honest. There were, last I heard, over 5 million sellers on Etsy. It's probably more than that, and it's probably going to grow more. So there are millions of listings on Etsy. I don't even know how many, but there's a ridiculous amount of listings on Etsy. So that means every day there's a ton of listings going on to Etsy. So it is not physically possible for every listing to be pre-approved, and that would have to be done by a human. There's no algorithm or anything that can catch absolutely everything. And as we said before, if they're going to set up something that catches things, they sort of have to catch everything, because if your item slips through the net and that's your best seller, and then Etsy comes along and says, no, you can't sell that, then you might have grounds to sue them, to say, you misled me, you had the system, I built my entire business on it, and now you've taken my income away. So yeah, Etsy can't pre-approve everything. And the things that they do, this is the thing, if they do set up an algorithm that is going to take things down, then it's going to be overly harsh. It's going to catch more. And we've seen this for whatever reason, whatever the stories with Amber. I believe it was to do with babies dying. I was going to go like babies not being unalived, but let's not euphemism. It was to do with things like this, and Etsy had to restrict the sale of Amber items. And so they made an algorithm that took things down, and it is too jumpy. I know people whose name is Amber, and they get just about every listing taken down. And so this is a system that just goes, everything, flag everything, and then you can come back and complain, and a real life person can check your listing and see. But this is going to take time. And a lot of people are finding this. It takes time for Etsy to answer your emails. It takes time for a person to look at your listing and see if it's okay. And they don't seem to have a great system in place for the person to flag it and say, can you please stop taking down this listing. So every time it's renewed or changed or something, it might get taken down as well. So yeah, Etsy can't check everything. But what you might find is if for some reason you've been selling quite well and Etsy hasn't noticed yet, but something brings attention to your shop, maybe you have a copyright claim on something else, or even you've done well and Etsy was about to feature you, and a real human being goes and looks at your shop and goes, ah, yeah, they're all bad. Then rather than just get a little warning saying, oh, you did a bad thing, don't do that again, they might just say, yeah, that's too much. We are just closing your shop. So you might have been selling great for years and suddenly Etsy goes, no, we're not having that. So that is why there is so many things that you shouldn't be able to sell that are being sold on Etsy. And to an extent, that is why we want them to be there. I'd prefer there weren't shady sellers coming on and trying to make a quick buck. But I would prefer that the system was as it is now, so that every single listing didn't have to be checked and there weren't algorithms making mistakes and it wasn't a nightmare to even be able to put a listing up. Because the more we complain about these kind of things, the more Etsy is going to try and put systems in place, and the more people are going to get flagged wrongly, and we're not going to be able to get listings up. People will lose shops, all sorts of the things. So yeah, Etsy doesn't let these. Etsy isn't aware of these and just going, "Oh yes, I'm going to let you sell what you want until somebody tells me off because I want the money out of you." This is just how it has to be just now. And yeah, before anyone says it, I'm not a stan for Etsy when they do when they do the bad things. I complain about them. Anyway, hope that helps clear something up.